What's up, guys? Mike here, and today I am wearing a Thunder jersey because we're talking about Kevin Durant's free agency. And before we look at the teams he might sign with, we have to look at the reason why he might leave. Because he's in a pretty great situation with the Thunder right now. I mean, Westbrook's one of the top 7 players in the league. Steven Adams was awesome in that playoffs, and he's only 22 years old. And most importantly, the Thunder were only one win away from making the NBA Finals, which means that at the very least, the Thunder are a top 3 team in the NBA right now. So Durant needs a really good reason to walk away from this situation. And what is that reason? I have no idea, but I think there might be a reason that he does want out. Now, the reason I think this is that by all accounts, it's the smart decision for Durant to stay in Oklahoma City next season. If he plays for the Thunder next year, he could delay his decision, which gives him more time to think it out, and he also will make considerably more money when the salary cap rises. But then here's the thing. Durant has never said that that's what he intends to do, which to me is pretty weird because after Game 5 and 6 of the Western Conference Finals, I think Durant had the perfect opportunity to fire his team up after some tough losses. All he had to do was during the press conference go up and say, "These are my boys, I'm playing with them no matter what next season. I don't care if we lose, I'm staying in Oklahoma City." But instead, Durant said nothing, which reminds me a lot of LeBron's last season in Cleveland. And we all know how that turned out. So if Durant does leave, he needs to go to a team that's better than Oklahoma City next season. That's the only thing that makes sense, because remember, he could just opt into a 1-year contract with OKC and then sign somewhere else long-term if he wants to. So with all of this said, let's look at the teams that consider themselves contenders for Kevin Durant next season and decide if they actually have a shot. The Los Angeles Lakers. The only thing the Lakers have going for them is their history, which Durant isn't going to care about. Like I said, Durant wants to win now. He's worried a lot about his legacy, and he knows that all of the great players in NBA history have won multiple NBA championships. So to put it simply, the Lakers are not ready to win next season. Even if they trade all of their assets for all-star level players, there are just better teams out there, and I don't think they would even be better than the Thunder no matter what they did. So Lakers fans, just enjoy a rebuild for once in your life. I'm sure it's not going to last long. The New York Knicks. The Knicks are in basically the same situation as the Lakers, but they do have one star player in Melo. The problem is they also have considerably less assets to make trades with, and even if they sign another all-star with Durant, they're still not going to be better than the Thunder. The Washington Wizards. I can't see how the situation in Washington is any better than the situation in New York. Which means that the only thing that Washington does have going for them is that Durant is from Washington, D.C. But I don't really think that matters that much, because when has that ever mattered in a star player's free agency decision? Basically, never. I mean, look at LeBron. He left the town he came from just so that he could go to a team that could win a championship. Players want money and to win. They could go live in their hometown in the offseason. And even if this did matter to Durant, how loyal is he to Washington, D.C.? I mean, he hasn't lived there full-time since high school. And when he was in high school, he decided to go to Texas instead of Georgetown or even Maryland. So yeah, I don't think Washington's really an option. The Houston Rockets. Durant is linked to Houston because of James Harden. The problem is that the Rockets really only have James Harden. They barely made the playoffs this year. Dwight Howard looks like he's going to be out. And to top it all off, I think Russell Westbrook has a better chance of getting you a championship than James Harden. So there's no way the Rockets are better than the Thunder next season, or even in the long term, so they're definitely out. And so finally, after all of that trash, let's look at the 4 teams that I think Durant actually has a chance to go to. The Miami Heat. On paper, this doesn't really make sense. They don't have many assets, they're older than other teams, they don't even have as much talent as other teams. But after watching the NBA this past decade, I've learned one thing. Never count out Pat Riley. When LeBron's free agency first started, no one had him going to the Heat. Same thing with Durant. But who's to say that Pat Riley doesn't pull some voodoo magic? It sounds absolutely crazy, but Miami does have assets that will allow them to dump contracts if they need to. So again, I'm just not counting out the Heat. The Boston Celtics. The team we've heard so much about because they have so many assets, they have talent, and they have cap space, which is a really good situation for Boston because they can trade some of those assets for big name players, and they also have the cap space to sign some players. And here's the thing. After watching the Big Three get formed overnight just a few years ago, I think we need to remember just how fast a team can go from full of assets to contending for a title. I think if Durant ends up in Boston, they keep Isaiah Thomas, Marcus Smart, and Jay Crowder. Other than those guys, I think the rest of their roster, including their draft picks, could be traded for a big star. Someone like DeMarcus Cousins or Jimmy Butler. Then with their remaining cap space, they sign a free agent like Al Horford, and suddenly that roster is loaded. And so moving out west, I need to address one thing that keeps popping up when Durant's free agency gets mentioned. Everyone keeps saying Durant needs to go to the East because it's easier for an Eastern Conference team to make the finals, which has been true, but if LeBron James stays in the East with Cleveland, then instantly Durant has a championship caliber team to compete against in the East. So really, I don't think Durant needs to go to a team just because they're in the East. I think Durant just needs to go to a team that will win him a championship, which is just the best roster possible, the Golden State Warriors. Now, if we were in NBA 2K16 or if Durant was a robot, Golden State would be the obvious choice. They've made 2 championships in a row, and obviously adding one of the best players in the NBA would make them practically unstoppable. Seriously, would they win 6 titles in a row with Durant? It's possible, right? But with that said, I think there are 2 problems here. The first is, do the Warriors even want to mess with their chemistry? Yes, Durant will give them an obvious talent upgrade, but they've gotten where they've gotten the last 2 seasons because of their chemistry. I'm just not sure if they mess with that. And the second problem is, of course, Durant. Now, Kevin Durant thinks that he is the best player in the NBA. He thinks he's better than LeBron, he thinks he's better than Steph, he thinks he's better than Westbrook, which makes sense because he is a star-level player, and that's the mindset you have to have. Now, with that said, I do not think Kevin Durant wants to be known as Steph Curry's sidekick, which is what he would be if he went to the Warriors. He'd be going to a team that just made the last 2 championships and just knocked him out of the playoffs, which in everyone's mind, including his, would be admitting defeat. It would be admitting to everyone that he could not, as the best player on a team, beat the Warriors and win a championship. I just don't see that happening. I just don't think Kevin Durant is wired that way. The San Antonio Spurs. If I'm being honest, the Spurs might be the most interesting team that Durant can go to. He would be joining a team that won 67 games without Durant, and with Durant, they would be practically unguardable. Seriously. Let's think about if they went small. They could start Kawhi and Durant at the 3 and the 4, and Aldridge as a stretch 5. We saw what LaMarcus did against Serge Ibaka in the playoffs this year. If the Warriors tried to guard him at the 5 with Draymond, it would just be a joke. And Durant and Kawhi on the wings would both be unstoppable on offense, and they both are amazing defensive players that could switch on anyone. And if the Spurs wanted to go big, they'd have Kawhi and Durant at the 2 and the 3. There's no need to even talk about why that would be a matchup problem. But with all of this said, I still don't see Durant going here. Like I've been saying, I think he really wants to build his own legacy, and the Spurs have a built-in legacy already attached to them. And so with all of this said, I think it comes down to 2 options. If I were Kevin Durant, I would go to the Celtics or stay with the Thunder. If he really does not believe that him and Westbrook can coexist and win a championship together, then he should go to Boston. They can build a powerhouse team around him almost instantly, flipping a bunch of their assets and using their cap space to bring in talent right away. And this would give Durant the opportunity to do what he wants, to create his own legacy that isn't dictated by other players or other franchises. Now, on the flip side, if Durant chooses to stay, I don't think that would be a mistake either. I said Westbrook was a top 7 player in the NBA before, but really, him and Durant could be 2 of the top 4 players in the NBA. And maybe you don't mess with it. Maybe you just roll the dice and keep trotting out that lineup and just hope that one year it leads to a championship. And so thank you guys for watching. At the end of the day, Kevin Durant's free agency is going to be crazy. It's going to impact the NBA so much, and I'm so excited to see where he goes. And I know the NBA Finals just happened, and they were pretty amazing. And in honor of LeBron James' absolute greatness, I'm going to be doing a video on him next, so make sure to look out for that. And that means that if you haven't subscribed already, it would be kind of cool if you did. I make a bunch of NBA content like this. I do a whole lot on the channel. Check it out. And to my current subscribers, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for your support. You know it means the world to me. And as always, guys, have an awesome day, and cue the music.